My jaw throbbed, a dull, insistent ache that had been my unwelcome companion for the past 72 hours. It was a lingering souvenir from my last dental visit, a testament to Dr. Albright's heavy-handed approach. I swear, the woman had the bedside manner of a drill sergeant. "Open wider, Harper. I can't see a thing," she'd barked, as if my mouth was some kind of rebellious fortress. The pain had been excruciating, the whole experience leaving me feeling more violated than cared for. That was it. I was done with Dr. Albright and her medieval methods. I was 24, not a child to be scolded, and certainly not a patient to be tortured. So, here I was, tucked into the plush leather of a new waiting room, the air hushed and smelling faintly of lavender and disinfectant. A stark contrast to the sterile, almost aggressive scent of Albright's office. I flipped through a glossy magazine, though my eyes kept drifting to the door marked Dr. Elizabeth Clark. New dentist, new hope. Or, at least, new tolerance for pain. My expectations weren't exactly soaring, but they couldn't possibly dip lower than my last experience. A soft voice called my name, and I looked up. Standing in the doorway was a woman who seemed to glide more than walk. This had to be Elizabeth. She wasn't just young, she was radiant. Her dark hair was pulled back neatly, revealing a face that was both refined and incredibly gentle. Her eyes, a striking shade of warm brown, held an almost liquid quality, deep and inviting. She wore a pristine white coat, but it did little to mask the graceful line of her figure beneath. She had a way of smiling that was less a flash of teeth and more a soft blossoming, creasing the corners of her eyes in a way that made them sparkle. She exuded a quiet elegance, a calmness that instantly soothed something restless inside me. "Harper, right?" she asked, her voice a low, melodic hum. Not a bark, not a demand, but a question laced with genuine interest. I nodded, feeling a strange tightening in my chest. "That's me." "Come on back," she gestured with a graceful hand, and I followed, a sudden, unexpected lightness in my step. The treatment room was equally serene, bathed in soft, natural light filtering through frosted windows. She guided me to the chair, her hand briefly, almost imperceptibly, brushing my arm. A jolt, sharp and entirely undental-related, shot through me. I settled back, watching her as she prepared her instruments. "So, what brings you in today, Harper?" she asked, her gaze meeting mine over the surgical mask she now wore. Her eyes, though partially obscured, still held that captivating warmth. I explained the lingering pain, the disastrous experience with Dr. Albright, careful to keep my tone neutral, though the frustration was still simmering. Elizabeth listened patiently, her head tilted slightly, a picture of focused empathy. "I'm sorry you had such a difficult time," she said, her voice laced with genuine concern. "We'll do our best to make this a more comfortable experience for you." And she did. Her touch was incredibly gentle, her movements precise and deliberate. She explained everything before she did it, her voice a constant, soothing murmur. "Just a little pressure here," she'd say, "or you might feel a slight pinch, but it'll pass quickly." It was like she was narrating a calming lullaby just for me. Each time she leaned in, a faint, almost ethereal floral scent wafted from her, clean and utterly captivating. It was a stark contrast to the metallic tang I usually associated with dentists. I found myself watching her, mesmerized. The way her brow furrowed in concentration, the soft curve of her lips visible just above the mask, the delicate, almost translucent skin of her temples. Her hands, nimble and sure, moved with an artistry that belied the sterile environment. I noticed the tiny scar just above her left eyebrow, a small imperfection that only enhanced her quiet beauty. She really was exquisite. When she administered the local anesthetic, I braced myself for the usual sharp sting. But it was barely a prick, followed by a cool, spreading numbness. She kept talking to me, a constant stream of reassurance, her eyes meeting mine every few seconds, as if checking my emotional state. "Are you doing okay, Harper?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. I nodded, unable to speak, but my eyes conveyed a silent, profound yes. More than okay. I was captivated. A bold thought, unexpected and unbidden, sparked in my mind. I wanted to know her better, to hear more of her soft voice, to be near that calm presence. It was audacious, ridiculous even, given the circumstances. But the thought wouldn't recede. It pulsed, a nascent curiosity, beneath the surface of my consciousness. She was my dentist, for crying out loud. And I was having these thoughts. She finished her examination, her touch lingering just a fraction of a second longer than strictly necessary as she lowered the instruments. "It looks like a deep cavity, Harper," she explained, her voice now back to a more professional tone, though still soft. "We'll need to schedule you for a filling. I can get you in next week if that works for you." Yes, I heard myself say, a little too quickly, a little too eagerly. Next week sounds perfect. I didn't care what day, what time. I just wanted to be back in her presence. I wanted more of this unexpected calm, more of her gentle manner, more of those warm, intelligent eyes. As she gave me post-examination instructions, her hand once again brushed mine as she handed me a small card with the follow-up appointment details. That fleeting contact sent another shiver through me. My skin tingled where her fingers had touched. Walking out of the office, the ache in my jaw was still there, but it was almost an afterthought. My mind was consumed by Elizabeth. The way she smiled, the sound of her voice, the soft, floral scent that still seemed to cling to me. It was absurd, I knew. But the idea, the thrilling, unspoken idea of wanting to know her better, of building a connection, began to form a nascent, quiet plan in my mind. Harper, the girl who resisted all constraints, suddenly felt an overwhelming urge to reach out. And I was completely unashamed of it. The week crawled by with agonizing slowness. Every day felt like a countdown, each hour dragging its feet. My mind kept replaying fragments of that first appointment, the gentle hum of Elizabeth's voice, the focused intensity in her eyes, the unexpected warmth of her brief touch. I even found myself sniffing my wrist, trying to conjure that faint floral scent she carried, a phantom fragrance that haunted my senses. I knew it was bordering on eager, but I couldn't seem to rein in the wild surge of anticipation that had taken root within me. This wasn't just about a filling anymore, it was about getting closer to her. My next appointment arrived, and I found myself dressed with more care than usual. I opted for a soft, fitted sweater that hinted at my figure without being overtly revealing, paired with my favorite jeans. Casual, but curated. As if I were going on a first date, not to have my tooth drilled. The thought made me smirk. I was ridiculous, I knew, but there was a thrill in this carefully constructed charade. Elizabeth greeted me with the same serene smile, her eyes still holding that captivating warmth. "Harper, good to see you again," she said, her voice a comforting melody. She remembered my name. Of course she did. She was a professional, but a small, selfish. Part of me swelled with disproportionate pleasure. In the treatment room, the atmosphere was just as calm, just as inviting. As she prepped her instruments, I decided to begin my subtle campaign. "You know, your office has a really nice vibe," I offered, making eye contact. "It's so much more peaceful than my last dentist's. Almost makes me forget I'm about to have a filling." I injected a light, appreciative tone into my voice. Elizabeth looked up, a soft smile touching her lips. "Thank you, Harper. I try to create an environment where patients feel comfortable. Dental visits can be quite stressful for some." Her gaze lingered for a moment, a hint of genuine appreciation in her eyes. "Well, you definitely succeed," I affirmed, letting my gaze drop to her hands as she picked up a tool. Her fingers were long and slender, surprisingly strong yet delicate. "Focus, Harper," I chided myself internally. As she worked, her movements were just as precise and gentle as before. She leaned in, her hair, dark and glossy, brushing lightly against my shoulder. The faint floral scent was stronger today, more pleasant. I could feel the warmth radiating from her body, a comforting presence beside me. My eyes traced the soft curve of her neck as she concentrated, the way a stray strand of hair escaped her neat bun. Every detail was magnified, etched into my memory. Almost done, Harper, she murmured, her voice close to my ear, sending a pleasant shiver down my spine. Just a little polish. When she finally pulled back, removing her mask, her face was slightly flushed from concentration. Her eyes, those beautiful brown eyes, met mine, and for a fleeting second, I felt a current pass between us, an unspoken recognition. All done, she said, a small, triumphant smile playing on her lips. Looks good. Just be careful not to chew on that side for a few hours. Thank you, Elizabeth, I said, my voice softer than I intended. Seriously, you're amazing. I barely felt a thing. I paused, then added, you must be really passionate about what you do. She chuckled softly, a low, pleasant sound. I am. It's rewarding to help people feel better. She started putting away her instruments, her back momentarily to me. This was my chance. What do you do when you're not saving teeth? I asked, making the question sound casual, friendly. She turned back, a slight surprise in her eyes. Oh, mostly quiet things. I enjoy reading, long walks. Sometimes I volunteer at the local animal shelter. She seemed a little hesitant, as if unused to discussing her personal life with patients. An animal lover, huh? Me too. I lied smoothly. I wasn't against animals, but my schedule rarely allowed for anything beyond admiring them from a distance. What kind of books do you like? I pressed, genuine curiosity, now mixing with my calculated approach. Historical fiction mostly, she replied, a faint blush dusting her cheeks. Anything that transports me to a different time. That's fascinating, I enthused, making a mental note. There's a great independent bookstore not too far from here. They have an amazing historical fiction section. We should grab coffee there sometime. The words hung in the air, audacious and direct. Elizabeth's eyes widened slightly, her gaze flickered to the door, then back to me. A delicate rose tint bloomed on her cheeks. She seemed momentarily speechless, her professional composure momentarily ruffled. Oh, she began a little breathlessly. That's very kind of you, Harper. But I usually keep my professional and personal lives quite separate. Her voice was soft, apologetic but firm. I didn't back down. This was just the first layer of resistance. I understand, I said, a smile playing on my lips. But I wasn't suggesting anything professional. Just two people who enjoy books and coffee. No drills involved, I promise. I kept my tone light, disarming, but my eyes held a challenge, a subtle invitation. I could see the internal debate flickering across her features. She looked down at her hands, then back up at me, a tiny, almost imperceptible shift in her usually steady gaze. She was considering it, and that was all I needed. Elizabeth didn't accept my coffee invitation right then, not directly. She offered a polite, somewhat flustered deflection about her busy schedule, but crucially, she didn't shut me down completely. Her hesitation, the faint blush that deepened on her cheeks, told me everything I needed to know. The seed was planted. I left her office that day with a smug satisfaction, a plan already taking shape in my mind. Subtle persistence, that was the key. A few days later, I found myself accidentally strolling past the charming little independent bookstore I'd mentioned. And as fate would have it, there she was, browsing the historical fiction section, just as I'd hoped. She was dressed casually today in a soft, cream-colored cardigan and dark jeans, her hair pulled back in a loose, artless ponytail. She looked even more captivating out of her crisp white coat, less formidable, more approachable. Elizabeth. I feigned surprise, my voice light and friendly. Fancy meeting you here. What a coincidence. She looked up, startled, a book clutched to her chest. A shy smile touched her lips when she recognized me. Harper. What a surprise. Her eyes widened slightly, a hint of genuine pleasure mixed with that familiar blush. Just picking up a new read, I said, gesturing vaguely at a nearby shelf. Figured I'd check out that historical fiction section we talked about. Any recommendations? She hesitated for a moment, then, to my delight, her shoulders relaxed. Oh, definitely. Have you read anything by Philippa Gregory? Her Plantagenet series is incredible. She launched into a brief, passionate description of a particular novel, her eyes lighting up as she spoke. It was a side of her I hadn't seen, animated, unguarded, truly engaged. I listened intently, nodding and asking questions, drawing her out. We ended up chatting for a good 20 minutes, standing between towering bookshelves, the scent of old paper and coffee brewing from the cafe corner filling the air. We discovered a mutual, if superficial, interest in old mysteries and a shared fondness for artisanal chocolates. It felt easy, natural. You know, I said, leaning casually against a shelf, lowering my voice just a touch, they have really good coffee here. And it's almost lunchtime. My treat, as an apology for all the pain Dr. Albright put you through. I offered a charming, self-deprecating grin. She laughed, a delicate, melodic sound that made my chest hum. It was the first time I'd heard her truly laugh. You really don't have to, Harper, she demurred, but her gaze lingered on mine, a visible battle between her ingrained reserve and a growing curiosity. But I want to. I insisted gently, my eyes conveying a sincerity I genuinely felt in that moment. Consider it a thank you for being such a wonderful dentist. This time, she gave a soft sigh, a tiny surrender. All right, Harper. Thank you.
Just coffee, though.
Coffee and maybe a pastry, I countered, already leading the way to the cafe section. That afternoon, over lukewarm lattes and a shared almond croissant, our conversation flowed beyond books and teeth. We talked about mundane things, city life, favorite seasons, childhood memories. Elizabeth spoke of growing up in a quiet suburban town, her love for long walks in nature, her slightly overprotective older sister.
Her voice was
soft, often trailing off, but I prompted her gently, making her feel heard, safe. I, in turn, offered curated snippets of my own life, my passion for travel, my rebellious streak tempered by a hint of artistic sensibility, carefully omitting any details that might scare her off. I noticed the way she listened, really listened, her gaze steady, absorbing every word. By the time we parted ways outside the bookstore, the afternoon sun casting long shadows, a comfortable familiarity had settled between us. This was really nice, Harper, Elizabeth said, her smile genuine and unreserved this time. Thank you. Any time, Elizabeth, I replied, a triumphant warmth spreading through me. We should do it again soon. Maybe check out that new art gallery downtown. I kept the suggestion casual, but my eyes held a knowing glint. She paused, then nodded, a slow, thoughtful movement. I'd like that, Harper. I really would. As I watched her walk away, her figure graceful and slight against the bustling street, a profound sense of accomplishment washed over me. The lines were blurring. The professional distance was eroding, replaced by something warmer, something undeniably personal. My initial, almost brazen interest in her was now laced with a genuine appreciation for her quiet intelligence, her gentle spirit. This wasn't just a pursuit anymore. It was a connection. And I was more than ready to deepen it. Our friendship, once a carefully constructed plan, now blossomed with an organic ease that surprised even me. The art gallery outing led to a casual dinner, which in turn led to regular texts, then impromptu coffee dates that stretched into hours. Elizabeth, initially so reserved, started to unfurl like a delicate flower. She'd share small anecdotes from her day, a funny observation from the animal shelter where she volunteered, or a particularly moving passage from a book she was reading. She even started initiating some of our outings, a subtle but significant shift. I, in turn, found myself genuinely enjoying her company. Beyond the initial pull, there was a quiet strength to Elizabeth, a deep well of empathy that I found myself gravitating towards. She listened with an attentive grace that few people possessed, making me feel truly seen. I'd always prided myself on my independence, on not needing anyone, but with Elizabeth, there was a comfort, a serene stillness I hadn't realized I craved. My gestures became more frequent, more lingering, a deliberate language of affection I was learning to speak with her. A hand placed lightly on her arm when she laughed at one of my jokes, a gentle brush of shoulders as we navigated a crowded street, a fleeting touch of fingers as she passed me a menu. I watched her closely, searching for any sign of discomfort, any pulling away. But there was none. Instead, I noticed a subtle softening in her gaze, a slight intake of breath, a fleeting blush that colored her cheeks. It was in these minuscule reactions that I found my encouragement, my silent affirmation that my efforts were not unwelcome. One brisk autumn afternoon, we were strolling through a park, fallen leaves crunching underfoot like brittle secrets. Elizabeth was telling me about a particularly challenging case at the animal shelter, a shy, neglected cat that reminded me, strangely, of her own initial guardedness. As she spoke, her voice tinged with a delicate sadness, I instinctively reached out and placed my hand gently on her forearm. "You have such a kind heart, Elizabeth," I said, my voice low, my thumb brushing lightly against the soft fabric of her sleeve. She stopped walking, her eyes meeting mine. Her gaze was soft, vulnerable, and for a moment, the world around us seemed to fall away. A warm wave of emotion washed over me, a feeling of protectiveness so strong it surprised me. She didn't pull away. Instead, she leaned into my touch ever so slightly, a silent acceptance. Her lips parted, as if to speak, but no words came. The blush deepened on her cheeks, staining them a rich rose. "It's just some stories are harder than others," she finally murmured, her voice barely a whisper, her eyes still locked with mine. There was a raw honesty there, a glimpse into a sensitivity she usually kept carefully guarded. She began to confide in me more, hinting at past hurts, a childhood disappointment, a quiet struggle with self-doubt. She didn't reveal everything, not yet, but the layers were slowly peeling back, exposing a beautiful, fragile core. I listened without judgment, offering a comforting presence. I found myself instinctively wanting to shield her from any further pain. The desire to make her happy, to see that genuine, unburdened smile on her face, became a driving force. A few weeks later, we were in my apartment, curled on the sofa, a documentary playing softly on the TV. It had become a comfortable ritual, these quiet evenings together. We were sharing a blanket, our legs brushing against each other. My arm was draped casually along the back of the sofa, my fingers gently brushing the soft strands of her hair near her shoulder. She seemed completely at ease, her head resting against the cushion, her breathing even and soft. I watched her, the flickering light from the screen dancing across her features, highlighting the elegant curve of her nose, the delicate line of her jaw. She was breathtaking in her quiet beauty. I felt a surge of longing so intense it made my chest ache. This was no longer just about the thrill of the chase, the satisfaction of building a connection. It was deeper, more profound. It was a yearning for closeness, for understanding with her. I shifted slightly, my fingers gently brushing against her neck, just beneath her ear. She reacted with a small, subtle movement, a barely noticeable shift. Her eyes fluttered open, slowly turning to meet mine. The documentary played on forgotten. The air in the room thickened, charged with an unspoken electricity. Her lips were slightly parted, her breath shallow. Her eyes, wide and luminous, held a mixture of apprehension and a nascent, undeniable curiosity. The unspoken language between us was growing louder, clearer. The friendship, the carefully constructed facade, was now stretched taut, ready to shift. And I was ready to be the one to bridge it. The documentary faded into an inconsequential hum. The only sound that mattered was the soft cadence of Elizabeth's breathing, quickening almost imperceptibly as our eyes locked. My fingers, still gently brushing the sensitive skin of her neck, felt the rapid pulse beneath my touch. The air in my apartment, usually a haven of my own rebellious solitude, now crackled with a tension that was both exhilarating and nerve-wracking. This was it. The moment I had been meticulously building towards, brick by careful brick. "Harper," she whispered, her voice barely audible, a question laced with uncertainty and something else, a fragile anticipation. Her eyes, those beautiful, intelligent windows to her soul, held mine captive. I saw a silent plea there, a hint of fear, but beneath it, a nascent curiosity that mirrored my own fervent feelings. I leaned closer, the scent of her, clean, warm, faintly floral, filling my senses, making my head swim. My gaze dropped from her eyes to her lips, soft and slightly parted. "Elizabeth," I breathed, her name a quiet acknowledgement on my tongue. "You're incredible." The words felt inadequate, but the emotion behind them was raw and undeniable. A delicate blush bloomed on her cheeks, spreading from her jawline up to her temples. She didn't pull away. That was all the encouragement I needed. My thumb, which had been brushing her neck, now slid to her jawline, my fingers gently resting against her cheek. Her skin was incredibly soft, warm beneath my touch. I should probably get going," she murmured, a token protest, her gaze flickering towards the door. But her body remained still, completely open to my touch. Her eyes, though, returned to mine, searching, questioning. "Stay," I whispered, my voice husky, laced with an intensity one hadn't known I possessed. My other hand moved, gently tracing the line of her arm, then her side, coming to rest lightly on her hip. It was a bold move, an overt sign of care, but it felt right, inevitable. She reacted again, a soft, subtle movement that ran through her frame. Her breath hitched. The quiet composure she usually wore so effortlessly seemed to be fraying at the edges, revealing a vulnerability that was both endearing and moving. I saw the battle raging within her, the ingrained propriety, the years of quiet reserve, clashing with an unfamiliar, undeniable pull. "Harper," she said again, a sigh escaping her lips, her voice a little weaker this time. Her eyes were wide, luminous in the dim light of the living room. I closed the small distance between us, my face hovering inches from hers. I could feel the warmth of her breath on my skin, could see the tiny flecks of amber in her dark irises. "Just stay a little longer," I murmured, my voice a soft plea, but my eyes held a different message, a promise of something more, something meaningful and unexpected. Her gaze dropped to my lips, then back to my eyes. The decision, the silent acceptance, seemed to pass through her in a slow, palpable wave. A tiny, almost imperceptible nod. That was my permission. My heart pounded a wild rhythm against my ribs. I lowered my head, slowly, deliberately. I gave her every opportunity to pull away, to protest, to retreat. But she remained perfectly still, her eyes now closed, her lips slightly parted in silent invitation. My lips met hers, tentatively at first, a soft, exploratory press. It was a question, a gentle inquiry. Her breath hitched again, and for a fleeting second, I felt a faint stiffness in her body, a tiny resistance. But then, as my lips grew more confident, more steady, her own lips softened, yielding under mine. A low, almost inaudible sound escaped her throat, a sound that sent a jolt of pure exhilaration through me. She was responding. She was here. The moment deepened, becoming more meaningful, more tender. Her hands, which had been resting passively in her lap, slowly, hesitantly, lifted. They hovered for a moment, then, with a surprising softness, rested on my shoulders, drawing me closer. Her fingers brushed against my hair, her touch both tentative and firm. The world outside ceased to exist. There was only the warmth of her proximity, the connection between us, the electric current that now coursed between us, obliterating the carefully drawn line between friendship and something utterly, thrillingly more. This was not just a kiss, it was a silent acknowledgement, a beautiful shift. The initial connection was a revelation, a soft, tentative exploration that quickly deepened into a meaningful bond. Elizabeth's earlier hesitation dissolved entirely, replaced by a surprising openness that matched my own burgeoning feelings. Her response, once tentative, now held a quiet certainty, her breath coming in soft, short gasps. Her fingers, resting on my shoulders, gently pulled me closer, a silent sign of her willingness. The faint floral scent I had noticed before now mingled with the warmth of the moment, making my head spin. A soft sound escaped her throat, a sound of pure contentment and perhaps a touch of bewildered acceptance. It was a sound that resonated deep within me, strengthening my feelings even further. She seemed to relax into the moment, her earlier reserve, the quiet propriety, giving way to a raw, beautiful vulnerability that was both exhilarating and profoundly moving. I pulled back slightly, our foreheads resting against each other, our breaths mingling. Her eyes fluttered open, dark and heavy-lidded, still glazed with a mix of shock and wonder. Her cheeks were flushed to deep, warm red, and her lips, slightly parted, held the memory of the moment. "Elizabeth," I whispered, my voice rough with emotion, my thumb gently brushing her cheekbone. "Are you okay with this?" I needed to give her an out, needed her explicit consent, even as every fiber of my being hoped for her to say yes. She gazed at me, her eyes searching mine, as if trying to decipher a complex truth. Then slowly, almost imperceptibly, she nodded. A fragile, brave nod that spoke volumes. "Yes, Harper," she breathed, her voice raspy, a whisper against my skin. Yes. That single word was all the permission I needed, all the encouragement I craved. Our connection deepened, this time with a fervent certainty, a deep, consuming feeling that had been simmering for weeks. We stayed close, heat radiating between us, a silent symphony of understanding and acceptance. The evening unfolded gently, with soft words and quiet moments. We talked more, sharing fears and hopes, our vulnerability creating a stronger bond. There was no need for hurried actions. The moment felt timeless, a space where we could simply be with each other, savoring the newfound closeness. Her trust, given freely, felt like a precious gift, and I cherished it, wanting to honor it with care. "Come with me," I murmured against her ear, gently guiding her up from the sofa. She followed without resistance, her hand instinctively finding mine, her fingers lacing through mine as I led her into the softly lit bedroom. The air was thick with anticipation, with unspoken promises, and the thrilling uncertainty of what lay ahead. There was no need for grand declarations, no need for elaborate plans. The language of our shared feelings, of our unspoken understanding, was speaking volumes, guiding us towards an inevitable, beautiful deepening of our connection. The soft glow of the bedside lamp cast long, dancing shadows across the bedroom walls. It was a deliberate choice, bathing the room in an intimate warmth, softening the edges of reality. Elizabeth's hand, still intertwined with mine, felt cool and slightly uncertain as I led her to the bed. Her eyes, wide and luminous, met mine, a silent question mixed with a nascent wonder. We stood there for a moment, simply gazing at each other, the air thick with unspoken promises. My fingers, still holding hers, gently tugged, urging her closer. She responded with a soft sigh, stepping into my space, her body yielding to mine. We stood together, close but respectful, savoring the moment. She rested her head against my shoulder, a soft sigh escaping her lips, a sign of trust and acceptance. My arms wrapped around her gently, holding her close, a silent promise of care. "I'm glad you stayed," I whispered, my voice soft against her hair. She nodded, her cheek pressing lightly against my shoulder. "Me too," she murmured, her voice muffled but clear. We stayed like that for a long while, simply holding each other, the world outside fading away. There was no rush, no need for anything more than the comfort of each other's presence. The intimacy of the moment was in the quiet, in the shared breath, in the unspoken understanding that something profound had shifted between us. Eventually, we settled onto the bed, side by side, still holding hands. The lamp continued to glow softly, casting a warm light over us. We talked in low voices, sharing stories from our pasts, dreams for the future, the kinds of things you only share with someone you feel truly connected to. Her voice was soft, laced with a newfound openness, and I listened, captivated, feeling a deep sense of gratitude for this moment. The night unfolded gently, with no need for anything beyond the closeness we shared. It was a symphony of quiet understanding, a beautiful, wordless conversation of hearts and minds drawing closer, a profound connection that transcended all my expectations. The first blush of dawn was just painting the sky in hues of soft gray and rose when I finally stirred. My arm was still around Elizabeth, her head nestled comfortably against my shoulder, her breath soft and even against my skin. The scent of her, a mix of the evening's warmth and that elusive floral note, enveloped me, making the moment feel perfectly, exquisitely right. I lay there for a long time just watching her sleep. Her face, usually composed, was utterly relaxed, a faint, contented smile playing on her lips. There was a gentle beauty in her vulnerability, a stark contrast to the guarded professionalism I had first encountered. My heart swelled with a feeling I couldn't quite name, a profound tenderness, a fierce protectiveness, a joyous sense of having discovered something truly precious. The rebellious girl who never wanted to be tied down found herself inexplicably anchored, tethered by a thread of undeniable affection. Slowly, her eyes fluttered open, blinking against the nascent light. She met my gaze, and a faint blush immediately crept up her neck, staining her cheeks a delicate rose. Her initial shyness was back, a fragile veil after the openness of the night. "Morning," I murmured, my voice husky with sleep and emotion. My fingers gently brushed her hair, tucking a stray strand behind her ear. "Morning," she whispered back, her voice still thick with sleep, a little raspy. She shifted slightly, still close beside me, but there was a subtle tension in her. I knew this moment, the fragile aftermath, was crucial. "Are you okay?" I asked, keeping my voice soft, reassuring. I needed to know, needed to hear it from her, needed to dispel any lingering fear or regret. She was silent for a moment, her gaze dropping to our joined hands resting on the sheet. I've never," she began, her voice trailing off, laden with unspoken emotion. "I didn't expect, with a patient." Her words were fragments, betraying the swirl of emotions within her. I gently lifted her chin, forcing her to look at me. Her eyes were wide, a hint of vulnerability shimmering in their depths. "Elizabeth," I said, my voice firm but gentle. "Last night wasn't about patient and dentist. It was about us. And it was incredible. For me, anyway." I offered a small, reassuring smile. "If you regret it, tell me." Her breath hitched. She shook her head slowly, a tiny, almost imperceptible movement. "No," she whispered, her voice gaining a little more strength. "No, I don't regret it. It's just a lot. I've never felt this." Her gaze searched mine, raw and honest. "I've always been so careful, so proper. My family, society, it's just not something I ever allowed myself to consider." My heart ached for her, for the burdens she had carried in silence. "I know," I said, pulling her closer, tucking her head under my chin. "And you don't have to be proper with me. You can just be Elizabeth, whatever that means for you." I kissed the top of her head, feeling the softness of her hair against my lips. "And as for patient and dentist, maybe we'll have to figure out how to navigate that, huh?" I attempted a light-hearted tone, trying to ease the heavy, unspoken anxieties. She chuckled softly, a fragile sound, but a chuckle nonetheless. "I suppose we do," she murmured, her body relaxing slightly against mine. "It's freeing, Harper. You're freeing. And you, my gentle dentist, are utterly captivating," I replied, pressing a kiss to her temple. "I've been thinking about this since the moment you walked into that waiting room." It was my turn to be vulnerable, to lay bare the depth of my initial, sincere interest, and how it had transformed into something far more profound. She pulled back slightly, looking up at me, her eyes filled with a mixture of surprise and burgeoning understanding. "Really? Really?" I confirmed, my gaze unwavering. "You disarmed me, and then you charmed me, and now I don't want to imagine a day without you." The words, once so impossible for me to utter, flowed effortlessly, genuinely. Her expression softened, a radiant smile finally breaking through her lingering shyness. A single tear escaped the corner of her eye, tracing a path down her cheek, but it was a tear of release, of acceptance, of a newfound freedom. She leaned in, her lips finding mine in a tender, lingering kiss. It was a kiss that spoke of vulnerability, of trust, of healing, and of a beginning. The world outside might have been stirring, but in the quiet intimacy of my bedroom, a new world was dawning for us both. Elizabeth, the woman who fought past hesitation and societal expectations, found solace and a thrilling, unexpected connection. And I, Harper, the rebel who prided herself on being untamed, found a bond that felt more real, more grounding, and more deeply satisfying than any fleeting adventure could ever offer. We were two disparate souls, woven together by gentle understanding and a fierce, undeniable affection, ready to navigate the complexities of our unexpected, yet utterly natural, bond.